The arena lights dimmed to nothing but scattered phone screens glowing like distant stars. 15,000 people held their breath. The air itself seemed to wait. This wasn't just another entrance. This was the resurrection of something everyone thought they'd buried 3 years ago. When the pyro exploded, it wasn't celebration, it was a declaration of war. Through the smoke and flames walked a silhouette that shouldn't exist anymore. Her career had been declared dead by doctors, dismissed by executives, mourned by fans who'd moved on. But there she stood, backlit by fire, her eyes carrying something darker than determination. They carried vengeance that had been fermenting in silence for 1,000 days. The crowd's roar wasn't just loud, it was primal. Grown men wept. Children who'd only heard stories about her through YouTube compilations now witnessed the myth becoming flesh. Signs that read, "We never forgot," trembled in shaking hands. But she didn't acknowledge them. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She walked with the mechanical precision of someone who'd rehearsed this moment in her mind so many times that emotion had been burned away, leaving only purpose. What nobody knew, what the cameras couldn't capture, was the phone call she'd received 6 hours earlier. Her sister's voice, cracking through tears, delivering news that changed everything. The comeback wasn't supposed to happen tonight. It was scheduled for next month's pay-per-view, carefully orchestrated with video packages and promotional build-up. But that phone call accelerated fate. Sometimes life doesn't wait for the perfect narrative moment. Sometimes it demands you act when you're still bleeding. Backstage, monitors showed her face in high definition, every scar, every line that hadn't existed before the injury. The women's locker room went silent. Champions who'd risen in her absence suddenly felt their accomplishments shrink. Not because she diminished them with words, but because her mere presence rewrote the hierarchy. The pecking order they'd established over 3 years just evaporated like morning fog. In catering, wrestlers who'd never met her stopped eating. Veterans who'd shared the road with her before exchanged glances that said everything. She wasn't the same person who'd left. The injury hadn't just taken her body, it had taken whatever mercy she once possessed. Pain has a way of burning away the parts of us that hesitate, that forgive, that forget. The general manager's office erupted into chaos. This wasn't the plan. Her contract technically didn't start until next week. Insurance wasn't finalized. Legal hadn't approved her medical clearance. But she'd walked through that curtain anyway, and now 60 million people worldwide were watching. You can't unpull a trigger, can't uncross a line drawn in fire. She stood in the center of the ring now, microphone in hand, saying nothing. The silence stretched so long it became uncomfortable, then unbearable, then somehow transcendent. When she finally spoke, her first words weren't about championships or glory or proving doubters wrong. They were 5 words that would define everything to come. I didn't come back alone. The lights cut to black. In the pitch darkness, the arena's confusion turned to electricity. Who was with her? An ally? A rival? Someone from her past everyone had forgotten? But when the lights returned, the ring was empty except for her. No surprise partner, no backup, just her standing alone, and somehow that made it more terrifying. She didn't come back with people. She came back with something worsened, finished business that had names and faces scattered throughout the roster. Every woman who'd claimed her spot, every executive who'd written her off, every doctor who'd said she'd never wrestle again. The camera caught her eyes scanning the crowd, but she wasn't looking at fans. She was looking through them, past them, into some private hell only she could see. 3 years of watching from hospital beds, 3 years of surgeries that promised recovery, but delivered only partial functionality. 3 years of being told to be grateful she could walk, while her soul screamed that walking was never enough, she was built to fly. Social media exploded in real time. Within minutes, her name trended worldwide. Old interviews resurfaced where she'd promised she'd return. Conspiracy theorists claimed they'd seen her training in secret gyms. Former opponents posted cryptic messages, some welcoming her back, others notably silent. That silence spoke volumes. They remembered what she'd done to them before. They remembered the brutality masked as competition. The most revealing reactions came from outside the ring. Her former physical therapist posted and quickly deleted a message. I begged her not to do this. The medical records were sealed, but whispers bled through cracks in the system experimental procedures. Alternative treatments, desperation wrapped in determination. In a hotel room across the city, her mother watched the television through her fingers, the way you watch a horror movie when you know something terrible is coming. She'd been there at birth. She'd been there in the ICU. Now she watched this return that felt less like triumph and more like walking back into a burning building. Her former tag team partner turned off the TV completely. They'd been sisters once. The injury had changed more than Bodazet had changed trust. One mistimed move. Half a second. One career ended, another drowned in guilt. They hadn't spoken since. Meanwhile, the current women's champion stared at her title, suddenly feeling like it was borrowed, not stolen, just temporarily held. The medical clearance paperwork told a quieter truth. She'd passed. Barely. Passing and thriving were worlds apart. Her injury had been catastrophic. Neck trauma that should have resulted in paralysis. Months unable to lift her child. A year unable to turn her head without vomiting from pain. Titanium screws, grafts rebuilt her body, but nerves don't regenerate like muscle. 80% functionality was a miracle for life and a liability for wrestling. Doctors explained everything. Statistics, scans, warnings, but they didn't understand the deeper injury, the erasure. Being forced to stop the one thing that gives life meaning breaks something invisible. She watched her legacy become past tense while she was still breathing. That kind of loss doesn't show up on Mr. Is. There were nights at 3 a.m. where pain medication battled photographs of her daughter. Some nights the pills won, enough nights the photo did. Her trainer later admitted there were sessions where pain made her scream, where dedication blurred into self-destruction. She feared not injury but losing instinct. Wrestling isn't thought, it's feel. And no test could tell her if that connection still existed. 3 weeks later, the company announced the match. No warm-up, no buffer, a championship match. The champion asked for a private meeting. They spoke honestly about fear, legacy, daughters, and responsibility. They agreed on one thing: no holding back. Anything less would be disrespect. The night before the match, the champion cried to her mother. The returning wrestler told her daughter she loved her words that could be routine or goodbye. Extra doctors waited ringside. Ambulances stayed close. Everyone feared catastrophe. No one predicted where it would truly come from. The match was perfect in its truth. 28 minutes of survival. The returning wrestler, one confetti fell. Tears flowed. It was the ending everyone wanted. 2 months later, she relinquished the title. Not injured, not broken, just finished. I thought this would fix me, she said. It didn't. It just proved I could survive. And now, I don't need it anymore. She walked away. Confusion followed. Some called it madness. Others called it wisdom. She later explained the comeback was never about wrestling. Wrestling was just the language she knew. The real fight was against being defined by trauma. Years later, documentaries focused on the return. She corrected them. The real comeback was walking away after proving she could survive. Her daughter once asked if she regretted it. She paused, then said, "Pain is inevitable. Letting it define you is optional." They said her career was over. They were right. But they were wrong about what happened next. She didn't end. She evolved. And sometimes, late at night, she'd sit alone in empty arenas, not chasing glory. Just acknowledging the place that broke her and saved her, she walked back through fire. But the real courage was choosing life after surviving it.